You're watching SA Today on Heritage Day. Now, Deputy President David Mabuza has admitted that the indigenous Griqua community, the Khoisans and the San communities have not been fully rightfully recognized. The Deputy President was speaking at the unveiling of the statue of the late leader of the Griqua community, Adam Kok III, located at the entrance of the Greater Kokstad municipal offices in Southern KwaZulu-Natal. Adam Kok was the third chief of the Kok clan of the Griquas. He ruled from the eastern Griqua from 1837 until the early 1860s. The Kokstad municipality also renamed its municipal building after Adam Kok III in honor of his contribution to the fight against colonialism. Deputy President Mabuza says that the country must thank the provincial leadership under the ANC and recognize the Griqua family. He says that the country recognizes this day. The family has reclaimed its space amongst its people, and the Deputy President later addressed the crowds gathered at the Riverview Stadium for the Heritage Day celebrations.
Earlier today, we honored the great Adam Kok III with the renaming of the Greater Kokstad municipality building after his name, as well as the unveiling of his statue. We are here to remember the history of our country and the proud heritage that defines our being as a people. We meet on this soil to claim our identity, the sense of self, and all that makes and defines us as a united, non-racial, non-sexist South Africa that constantly strives for a just and a prosperous society. We have come here to pay tribute to all those who came before us in making a South Africa of our dreams that is united in diversity. We come to celebrate our heritage and to wallow in the spring of our diversity with a single objective of raising the sun of hope. That unity, despite all our differences, is our defining strength. It is no coincidence that we descend on these shores of Kokstad to spend this special day in this beautiful town, which is a representation of the kaleidoscope of culture, representation of history, representation of totems, heritage, and multi-feasts of traditions. There are few places than Kokstad that can lay claim to being a melting pot of cultures and a place of common heritage as this town does.
I was the Deputy President a little bit earlier on speaking to the community in Kokstad. Now we explore this Heritage Day a little bit further, and I'm now joined in studio by a man that you may have recognized in Parliament, and also if you're from Gauteng, you might have recognized him as one time our leader here in the province as well. But some of us know him as well as a great mind when it comes to heritage issues and culture and history, particularly through the Kara Institute. Dr Mathole Motshekga, thank you very much for joining us. Welcome to the program.
Thank you, Peter, for inviting me.
All right, so 1995, the government saw it fit that today be marked as Heritage Day, and there was a rationale for it. And I just wonder, 23 years later, where are we in terms of that project?
Our icon, Nelson Mandela, whose centenary we are celebrating, conceived it as a nation-building project. And I think we lost sight of the character and then confined it to a day. He looked at it as a heritage month, hoping that we would go back to our roots and say, why do we as African people look at September month as the heritage month, culminating on today's date? Now we have tended to focus on a single day other than on the month, because African people in the whole of Africa south of the Sahara had a calendar, a lunar calendar of 3 seasons of 4 months each, and a solar calendar of 3 quarters. And if we had kept to that vision of Nelson Mandela, we would not be having the challenges of patriarchy today, the abuse of women and children. So it has just now become a ritual on which day politicians will speak and people will dance and so on. And now the question is, what is the content of Heritage Month and Heritage Day? And the content was supposed to be nation building and social cohesion. You will see right now the Griqua people feel they have been left out, and the white people in the country see it the whole day as a bright day, because we have not injected the content that Honorable Mandela thought of.
Is there a way to get a collective heritage, or do we continue to celebrate in our little pockets? Because maybe that's what contributes to these Braai days here, or Chisenyama there, or whatever.
It is possible, because you see, if you take, I think the starting point should be that indigenous, that South Africa is an African country at the southern tip of the continent, and that the indigenous people that are here today, they will be called Zulus, Khoisans, and all these identities did not exist. They saw themselves as the people or children of the sun, and the border of Limpopo did not exist. And even in terms of their belief system, the Karanga would say they worship Mwari Wedenga, the Kalanga will say Mwali Wedenga, and then in South Africa, the Venda would say Nwali, the Tsonga would say Nwali, the Sotho will say Mohale. So, and you look at the mountains, in Zimbabwe you will have Lundi Mountain, you will have Lundi River, you have Malundi Mountain in KwaZulu-Natal, you have Intabazaga Lundi, you have Maluti Mountains. So even our languages are actually branches of the same Proto-Bantu language. So the problem is perhaps because of apartheid, the emphasis is on the identities which were imposed on us by those who sought to divide and rule us. So maybe we should go back to the drawing board and say, what is the purpose of heritage? Heritage must help us to build a socially cohesive nation, and the starting point should be that we are an African people on the southern tip of the continent. We are not an outpost of Europe. And the Europeans who made South Africa their home would see South Africa and respect it if the indigenous people themselves respect it, and then they see themselves as a people and not small groups of people who happen to be here, not even sure where they come from. You know, yesterday I was at Mapungubwe. We were on the riverbed there, and then there's a fire across the river, and then when we celebrate there, the people from Zimbabwe walk over. There's no water there. They walk over. They say, no, we used to walk over. Yes. And we don't know who decided that this must be a boundary. So we were one people at the southern tip of the continent, worshipping the Queen of Heaven, Mwariwe Denga, and that is still the common belief of all the people.
So should this not be a holiday for the region, not just South Africa?
That's why you see cultural integration of the sub-region is important, because these identities are artificial. I mean, today the people of southern Mozambique were governed from Mapungubwe and later from Great Zimbabwe. People of northeastern Botswana were governed from Zimbabwe. But if you look at the names that we call one another, we no longer believe that we are one people, because somebody at some point decided that you will be different, because this subcontinent has got to be shared between the Portuguese, the Dutch, the British, and so on. So that's why we should applaud our government for having decided that we need to rewrite the history of this country, because that history will help us not only heal the wounds created by apartheid, but help us to create not only a socially cohesive South Africa, but a socially cohesive subcontinent.
All right. Dr. Motshekga, I'd like us to carry on with this conversation, so we're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we'll continue to explore this fascinating subject of Heritage Day and what Nelson Mandela had in mind when he brought it into play in 1995. Stay with us for that.